Hello, audience of Elisha Space. The guest I have with me today, Christian Ray Flores. He is a dynamic individual who works with business owners, entrepreneurs, with moving in authenticity as they are building their brands. And as we were having our conversation to discuss this show, one of the things that primarily came out is that when you have some unhealed wounds, some unhealed soul wounds, unfortunately, it can be reflected in what you present within your brand. That's also personally as well as professionally, right? And so we decided that we would like to do a show around this topic and for you just to get to know him a little bit better as well. Christian, I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here. I'm a business coach. I'm an entrepreneur. We have a marketing company that does basically consulting and brand strategy for startups. We also do personal brand development. That's the coaching piece. And I have a very strange backstory. I've basically grew up, this is my 6th country in my 4th continent. So I've seen a lot of drama, civil unrest, poverty, danger, things like that. I'm half Russian, half Chilean. I was a baby when my parents moved to Chile. They wanted to stay there. There was a military coup or refugees from there, went to Germany, then Russia, then Africa, one of the poorest countries in the world, Mozambique. And I grew up there. So I saw civil war there. And after my parents' divorce, we moved back to Russia during the Soviet Union. So it was like the worst time to be there. And I saw also the whole thing collapse, right? The collapse of the Soviet Union. There was an attempted military coup there as well, like tanks in the streets, that kind of thing. That was like a very eclectic sort of upbringing that was both challenging, but also very enriching. And I was able to sort of change everything by going into entertainment. I was very successful as a pop artist, producer. And then we moved to the States about 21 years ago with my family. I'm an evangelist. I did some ministry work, missions work, philanthropy all over the world. Started 3 different businesses. Some went well, some didn't. And that's it. That's sort of the quick popcorn version of this introduction.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Let me ask you, because Xponential Edge, you do a lot around branding and authenticity. What was the journey around that? How did you get there?
Yeah, as backstory with Xponential Edge, Xponential Life is the coaching, Xponential Edge is the podcast and newsletter. And Xponential Edge is basically my way to educate, equip people who want to build a personal brand on all that is needed for that. Everything from the inner game, outer game, strategies, tactics, that kind of thing. And what I find is that I would say most people who have a professional sort of background expertise can and probably should build a personal brand, right? And that gives them much more flexibility, choices, freedom, income, impact, all of these things. And the problem is that most of us just don't see the value. We sort of know that there are people out there doing what we could be doing, and we don't believe we are those people. We're not smart enough, not good enough on camera, not good enough, whatever. Even our value is sort of underestimated usually. And the reason for that is because we're so familiar with our own expertise that we don't see it as valuable. And what we do is we help people like that understand the value, find their edge, which is that idea of the edge, find the mindset of someone who can actually develop and productize their edge. And we call that the fuel that you run on every day. And then develop a personal brand and everything that goes into that. And it's just extraordinary, the kind of transformation you can experience as someone who can now share their expertise, serve more people in more places at any time.
It sounds like you're helping people break free from that which sets them back. That's what it sounds like that you're doing.
Yes. Our potential is mostly underdeveloped and underrealized because there's certain aspects of becoming known and trusted in an area that we shy away from. That's special. And the truth is actually most people who have some expertise are very, very special. And in the modern world, more than ever in the history of humanity, you can actually serve. There are people praying to find somebody like you with your unique expertise. And if you don't put yourself out there, they won't find you, right? And that sort of lights me up. It lights me up to talk about it. For example, I'll give you an example quickly. Okay. So I'm in Mexico right now, and I was going on a scuba dive 2 days ago. The dive master, her name is Lauren. She's French. So we're hanging out while we're sailing to the point of the dive. And she's like, what do you do? I said, well, I'm a business coach. We do personal branding for people. And she goes, oh, that's good. We start talking about her. And what do you want to do? She loves nature. She loves diving. She lives and breathes diving. And she wants to travel from place to place, teach people. But she only makes very little money. That's what most people who teach scuba do. They do it for the lifestyle, not for the money, which is very admirable. She goes on dives every day. I say, okay, you go on dives every day. You know how to dive. You know all the gear. You know the techniques. You know the strategies, the skills you want to have. And you know everything about what happens underwater. Yes. Okay, you have expertise. What if you create a podcast or a YouTube channel that talks about how to go from point A to point B, what to avoid, how to not make mistakes, how to get better quicker, the best gear to use, the best places to go.
I'd watch that show.
Absolutely. I said, you publish that. Now you are serving way more people than you're serving now. And then you can make money off of advertising, of a product placement, all kinds of things like that. And then on top of that, if you add a course to it, she goes, yeah, really? I said, yeah. It could be an online course or one-to-many coaching program or a book, a combination of those things. She goes, really? I said, yeah, absolutely. Like you can literally do that. About a few months, you'll be in a different place. She goes, I don't know about that. I don't like social media. And I'm like, well, what if I tell you can make 10 times more money doing that? Would you like social media then? She goes, yeah, I would love social media then. Well, if you make 10 times more money than you're making right now, would you have the choice to go anywhere to do what you love? Yes. Without changing anything that you do every day, you go on dives. Yes. Okay. Is it worth the effort? And the answer to that question is the difference between a person who's sort of stuck in a limited possibility professional setting and a limitless possibility professional setting. And we're talking about all kinds of expertise.
Love that, because see, I do it on the mental health side and you do it from the business standpoint. And we're both touching mindset, right?
A lot of it.
How has that combination of faith and mental health helped shape your career philosophy and approach to authenticity? How has that affected?
Well, when it comes to faith specifically, I'm a Christian. One of the things, I was very good at what I did when I became a believer, right? I was on the top, probably 0.1% in my market of entertainers, selling millions of albums. But if you don't have the mindset, the mental health, and the emotional self-regulation skills, you're going to eventually hit a wall, which is what I did. I was clinically depressed after I had a number one hit. So having skills is not enough. The ability to go from stressed, anxious, confused to creative, excited, high energy every day, that's the difference maker. Because you can become top of your game in a few years, but then plateau for a decade or two.
You see that with a lot of artists.
Absolutely. Okay. Many artists. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Creatives are highly sensitive people, right? So you don't manage that skill. You don't understand how to manage that. You will limit yourself. But it's the same thing with entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are actually highly creative people. Athletes, business professionals, anyone who is in leadership is in a highly creative space because you're creating something that was not there before.
Right.
And most of the professionals, creatives, artists, entrepreneurs, they will do really well because their outer game gets rewarded by the world, right? So you can get status, you get money, promotions, you get much more responsibility. Your life becomes more and more complex until you hit the limit where you cannot create new things. You're just catching up. You're just managing. You're not creating anymore. And that's where you hit your plateau. And I think most people hit that. In your inner state, if you develop, I teach this literally, and people feel the difference in week 1. I call that win the game techniques. And it's a whole basically skill set. And you can literally learn that in a few days. You'll feel the difference on week 1. And you obviously now the goal is to maintain it, right? And basically I'll teach you how to go from stress to creative, low energy, fatigue to high energy focus in an hour.
It's amazing.
Once you master the skill, and you can master that skill fairly quickly. And then on that foundation, you can build something different. And I think the difference between Xponential and many other approaches is that people teach you a lot of tactics. This is what you do. This is what you need. But they don't give you the capacity to execute on those tactics. And we actually start with the fuel piece. And then we talk about the edge. Then we talk about the brand. So it's really foundational, laying the foundation and building on top of that.
What I found is that, when you're in this space of a role of leadership or being creative, you have to wear a lot of masks because you can't show, well, you can show, but it's kind of not encouraged, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
To be authentic. And so people tend to wear these different masks and these different spaces while they're wearing the brand because you're kind of taught you don't want to hurt your brand, that type of a thing. So it's like your brand is always on, even though being human, we're dynamic individuals. We might be at a different mood or a different space. So let me ask you, how do you maintain authenticity within those different dynamics and within those different spaces?
Well, I would just say that maintaining authenticity, basically being authentic will hurt your brand. You haven't figured out your brand yet.
Oh, that's really good.
You haven't figured it out. Your brand is authenticity. That's literally the very core of your brand. Your unique set of nuances, approaches, worldviews, cultural background, things like that, coupled with your expertise, the thing that you do for other people. That is the brand. And it's very hard to do because we are taught to basically fit into a mold. It starts with education. Our education is a post-industrial system it's like a conveyor belt, right? So the kids are a cog in the machine. And maybe if you're in homeschool or private, high touch, 5-6 kid per classroom, maybe you'll get an individual approach to who you are. Otherwise, you won't, basically. You'll fit in. And then you go into the corporate world or into a job, you're a cog in the machine there. You're taught to basically fit into a mold, which is actually for a while fine because you're learning and apprenticing a new skill, right? A set of skills, how to become professional, how to bring coffee, how to flip burgers, how to execute Excel sheets, how to do sort of the mechanics of the professional world. Eventually, you catch up and you become a master of some sort of trade, right? Well, then fitting in actually stops serving you, but people just keep going into their 50s and 60s sometimes as a cog in a machine. And that's what happens, like mid-40s to sort of mid-60s is where people start going, I'm just really unhappy right now. I'm like, what's going on? I've made good money. I'm VP of something. I am producing, but I have also the lifestyle to maintain. Now I can't lose it. There's more at stake. It's hard for me to change lanes. What will people say? But I'm unhappy. And it goes in circles, on and on like that. And the problem is that they didn't switch to their personal brand early enough.
Mm.
I think life goes in seasons, right? You're a student, then you're a practitioner, you start learning a trade, then you're a master, then you're a sage. When you're older, you want to just pass on wisdom. Right. And when you sort of reach that mastery phase, and usually, look, plus minus 5 years, let's say, you start reaching mastery in anything in your maybe early 30s, if you're focused. If you're not just sort of playing video games and smoking weed in your parents' basement. You reach some sort of mastery. That's when you need to start building a personal brand, in my opinion, because you do have an opinion, you have skills, and you have your personality in that. This is where your authenticity can differentiate you from other people who have mastery. At a certain level, everybody's good. Beyond a certain level, everybody's excellent. Like you don't differentiate yourself just by being good in whatever, being a lawyer, being a doctor. There's more to it after a certain level. It has to be you, your passion, your giftedness, your nuance, even what is perceived as unimportant to the central thing. We do a lot of work with finding those things and then coupling it, sort of infusing your expertise or authenticity. And that's when you start shining, because there's no other person like you doing the thing that you do.
You've given me so much. So you've been to many different countries. You've had a very, in my opinion, a unique childhood in that you've seen many different things. How did you maintain your authenticity?
No, I think that's actually, in the long run, it helped me in this way, in a very counterintuitive way. And that's probably part of the reason why I'm come up with this sort of ability to find authenticity both in myself and others. Actually, this is counterintuitive. I just didn't fit in anywhere. So I was an immigrant. I would change countries. I changed 4 countries by age 7. And it would be like everything. People look different, sound different. The language was different. So as a kid, you really want to fit in everywhere, because instinctually we want to fit in as people, but as children, I think that like times 5. And I learned that I couldn't fit in. Eventually, by maybe my teenage years, late mid-teens and things like that. So I said, if I can't fit in, even if I try, because it just don't look like everybody, don't sound like everybody, I might as well just stand out. So you went the other way, which is essentially a personal brand. You go, I'm not going to like be a cog in a machine. So I'm going to dress a certain way, speak a certain way. I graduated with a master's in economics. All my friends were going into banking, finance, trade. And I'm like, I've been a singer, a dancer my whole life. I'm going to go into show business. And the chances of success is like 0.1, whatever percent. I go there, but I have sort of this unusual ability to create something so unique that I'm not trying to copy anybody, which is essentially the authentic piece. So early on, all of a sudden it pays off. So the gift for me, almost like the payoff for being an outsider my whole life, I never belonged, is when I understood that that's actually an advantage, not a disadvantage.
Right.
That I can bring my whole self into a thing that I do. And it immediately pays off, because people want uniqueness. They want expertise, but they also want uniqueness applied to expertise. So eventually sort of sunk in, and I started doing it for other people. And then the coaching piece is that. And I can tell you about authenticity. I think it depends on how people define it. I know somebody who I admire greatly who says, forget about this whole buzzword authenticity, ridiculous. You're not authentic. Like you don't allow yourself to express every thought that comes to mind. Of course not. In social settings, you speak a certain way to your mom, a certain way with your friends, a certain way. That's all true. But let's narrow the definition of that authenticity. Definition in my mind, for the sake of this conversation, is the best that you are at your core beliefs, your values, your philosophy, your ethos. That's authenticity. So obviously you're not going to be a child and freak out in the middle of a business meeting. That's not authenticity. That's childishness. But I would say if you work on yourself and you develop actual techniques and strategy, and you have opinions about things, you have to have opinions about things, and you bring your full self to the thing, the thing that you've worked for years and years and years to master, that's authenticity. And I think the ultimate expression of authenticity is if you have children, they will basically be able to confirm that the thing that you say in public is the thing that you say in private.
Absolutely. Kids are brutally honest.
And my children, I have 3 daughters, and they are very brutally honest. And they will, if they were here, they'll basically say that I am exactly the same way on a podcast as I am at home with my family. There's no difference whatsoever. To my mind, it's authenticity. So once you get to a place where you're very comfortable, you work really hard on both expertise and your inner world, your inner game. Authenticity is very liberating, because you are not trying to create an image. That's not a brand. That's a front. You know, you're not trying to create a persona for the public when you're not that person. I am literally the same exact person, and it's very liberating. And by now, because you believe in yourself and because you have some expertise and you put it out there, I know that, for example, this interview will appeal to a very specific group of people because I'm being authentic, not because I'm speaking cliches and copying 4 or 5 other people who talk about the same thing. So certain people will tune into the signal that I present, and a lot of people will not, and that's totally fine. I'm just looking for the people who resonate. That's all I want. I don't want to impress everybody. I don't want to be liked by everybody. This authenticity gives you a lot of confidence, a lot of peace, a lot of focus. And that's where you want to end up. And that's a truly enduring brand because you don't have to fake anything.
For some people that are having difficulty with us being authentic, because it can be a push-pull, what are just a few suggestions you might have for them?
Okay, so I'll give you a few. First of all, develop an inner game, the ability to emotionally self-regulate, develop a prayer meditation practice that allows you to actually go inward and understand who you truly are. Know thyself. That's the thing. So that's one. Be in touch exactly with who you are. Learn how to emotionally self-regulate. Get people who can mentor you, who can see the value in you, who can help you heal, a counselor.
That's huge.
Obviously, a lot of the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves that are diminishing stories are just trauma stories from when we were kids. And we keep playing the same tapes over and over again.
Uh-huh.
And you want to heal from those things, right? If you don't do the work to heal from past trauma, you're going to be very authentic as a victim. And people will feel that, smell that on you. Oh, this person's a victim. He wants to blame. She wants to blame the world, the universe, the person, the surroundings, the organization perpetually. That person's not healed. And they might not even have elegant language to explain it, but they'll go, yeah, I'm going to stay away from this person. You heal, develop inner game, develop basically transcendent practices that help you find who you truly are. Get coaching in actually refining your edge, understanding where you're supposed to be doing in this season of life. That's a good one. Get rid of toxic people in your life, people that bring you down,
right?
Environments that bring you down. And there's ways to do it. It's painful to do that because you get used to sort of the same cycles, the same environments. Put yourself in rooms where you're not the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Surround yourself with maybe a close 4 or 5 people who are better than you, smarter than you. So that's just a few things.
Well, and I've said this before many times, but the better you know yourself, better you get to really, because I'm convinced that a lot of us don't know ourselves unless we do the deep healing work.
Yeah, I agree.
And it pours into branding, it pours into authenticity. I think it reflects in our relationships and the type of people that we invite into our inner circles. And the more you know who you are, the better you get to know yourself, audience, the more you start to really begin to like yourself and love yourself. Because that's really kind of what Christian's saying.
Yeah.
You're not easily shifted. Like, people can't just say anything to you. You're not going to compromise your standards, but you got to do the work in order to really get to know yourself.
You have to do the work. And I have sort of these slides, right? Okay, this is what I'm teaching you. Every single module ends with one slide, and it has 3 words: do the work. Every single one. Without it, it's all just theory.
And it's not easy to do the work. It's not easy to do the work. But the thing is if you don't do the work, you're going to get the same results you've always had before.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, there's no way to get around it.
There are no shortcuts.
I truly thank you for coming on the show. I know that you are probably enjoying your time, and I don't take lightly that you came to talk to my listeners, and really appreciate that. If someone wants to get in contact with you, learn more about what you do, how can they reach out to you?
Imagine there are 2 groups of people in your audience. One is people that are just very, very curious, and they just want to be equipped. Those people should go to the Xponential Edge podcast and newsletter, and the URL is christianrayflores.com. You can subscribe for free. You can upgrade to paid. Lots of really, really good value. I invest tons of time and energy into that newsletter and podcast. If the second group is people who go, oh, I want to be coached, join the program, tell me more. And those people should go to exponential.life. And exponential is spelled without the E, starts with an X, sort of the cool way to spell exponential. So Xponential.life is the coaching program. Xponential Edge is a podcast and newsletter. So if you're generally interested, Xponential Edge is for you. Go to the podcast and newsletter, subscribe. You're going to love it. If you're like, okay, I'm very serious about this thing, go to Xponential Life.
And so, audience, of course, I will have all this information in the podcast. I have been on Christian's Substack, and I have been getting his emails. I've peeped his show, and it's all good. Yeah, that's not him. So,
Thank you, Elisha.
You will check it out, and I will also have his information out there on the show notes so that you can also have access to him. Christian, really thank you for taking the time out. I know that you're out of the country and that you're taking the time out of your schedule to come see me. So I really appreciate that. And audience, this is a healing journey. Authenticity affects everything. Moving in authenticity affects your connections. It affects how you move in business. It affects how you move in your personal life. And so my hope is that you took just a couple jewels and that you heard from Christian's story, as well as some action points that you can do. And that from there, you can add it to your healing journey and become a better version of yourself. I thank you all for joining Elisha Space, and I hope you have a wonderful, fantastic day. Bye, guys.